fall off the bone tender beef ribs, mostly cooked with traditional barbecue. But we are going to put these beef ribs on the rotisserie. Just like that.
Big thanks to Kamada Joe for sponsoring this episode.
I think at this moment the popularity of beef ribs is bigger than the popularity of brisket. And that is saying something, because the brisket is the king of barbecue. And any hardcore barbecue will say no, brisket is still the king. But if you check social media, you will see more beef ribs than you will see actual brisket.
Boy, look here, this is tenderness.
And traditionally, those beef ribs are smoked for many hours until they turn soft and tender. But did you know there's also another way you can cook beef ribs? That's right, there is another way. Let's get the beef ribs out. These are my beef ribs. They're not the biggest beef ribs in the world, but they are really tasty. And to cook them, I've got this special technique that we're going to use today. But before we get into that, I'm going to prepare them first. I'm going to take the beef ribs, put them on my cutting board and cut them into single ribs. I want to make sure I cut them right, and that's a little cross. There we go, center here, center in the back. Because if you didn't know, ribs actually don't run straight. You can see that this is the center. There we go. And now we got 3 of these delicious looking single ribs. And to season them, I'm going to go with the classic barbecue seasoning. It's just a flavor profile where you can't miss. I'm going to season these beef ribs heavily. I'm even going to leave the fat cap on and season it with the classic seasoning. Now normally I would never do such a thing. I would either take the fat cap off or use a more salt and pepper heavy seasoning. But in this case, everything is different. And of course I'm gonna season all 3 ribs the same. Now that I got my beef ribs all seasoned up, it's time to talk about the cooking method. And therefore I'm gonna fire up my barbecue. I'm gonna open it up, put some charcoal in, and now I'm going to put in my rotisserie ring. Now that is the method that I'm going to use to grill these ribs. Hopefully they're going to be just as good as traditional barbecue, but maybe even better. The cool thing about this basket is I can just take it out, put my ribs on. I'm going to put the bones towards the skewer and just clamp the rest of it nice and snug in between. Just like that. And that is how easy this is to do. I'm going to put it back in the rotisserie. There we go. And the only thing I need to do now is add a thermometer to keep my eye on the temperature, of course. But since it's a rotisserie, I can't really use a thermometer with a wire. Therefore, I'll be using a wireless thermometer. I'm going to fire up the barbecue and set it to a temperature of about 140 degrees Celsius, which is around 285 degrees Fahrenheit. I expect that at that temperature we're getting a little bit of roasting action, but it's not high enough to get too much roasting action because we still want to take it low and slow. You see, there's no way you can do beef ribs really fast because then you're not giving the meat time to really disintegrate. We need all the tough parts of the meat just to become super soft, and that takes at least 2.5 hours if you're boiling it. But if you're roasting it on a barbecue, you're going to need at least 4 hours. But then of course comes the most important thing at the end of the cooking session. We need to get these beef ribs to the point where we're happy with them. Tender, beautiful crusty bark on the outside, juicy, and of course the neighbors need to be climbing the fences because of that beautiful smell. Let's take a look at these beautiful beef ribs. I really got to show you. But I don't have too much time because every time I open it up, the temperature just shoots up. So quickly, just a sneak preview, 2 hours at the moment. And look at this. We got an amazing pullback on the bones. The outside of the beef ribs are super crispy. The fat is rendering down. And it's basically air frying the outside of the beef ribs, giving us the most beautiful crust on the beef ribs that I've ever seen. The only problem is that we're not done cooking yet. I currently have a core temperature of 75 degrees Celsius and I want to take it up to 95, 96 degrees Celsius. And that means we still got a long way to go, but I don't want these beef ribs to become like burned and super dark on the outside. So hopefully everything stays the same on the outside while the inside slowly turns soft. Temperature is now 93 degrees Celsius, which means we're very close to having them done. So let's take a look. Wow! As you can see, they're getting a little bit darker than we had before. I love the color that we had, but now it's getting on the dark side, more like a bark that we know from barbecue. But as you can see, the greases are dripping, the fat is starting to burn up. I need to get these ribs out. I'm just going to take these out, close the lid. Wow! Isn't that a pretty picture? Let's take them out of the rotisserie. Oh, wow! These look absolutely spectacular. They're not as dark as I thought. Of course, in the barbecue it's a little dark, but look at this. The color is insane. So putting them on the rotisserie already gives me something special. Let's get these out of the rotisserie basket. Now they look spectacular, but we can't start eating them yet. One thing is that I still want the temperature to go up a little bit, and the other thing is that they need to rest so that the juices can spread out back to their original position and they become even softer and even more tender. And to get that effect, I'm gonna put them in aluminum foil. I'm just gonna stick them together. I'm not gonna put in any butter or any beef tallow. I'm just gonna wrap them up as they are. I'm not going to do a full 2-hour rest. I'm just gonna leave it at about a half hour or until the temperature drops to below 60 degrees Celsius. And if you wonder how do you know if it drops below 60 degrees Celsius, that's what we use thermometers for. Okay, let's go. Can't wait. 30 minutes are up. Not waiting any longer. I need to see what's going on there. Is rotisserie the new way to cook barbecue? Ooh. Of course, it's coming clean off the bone. That's what the temperature does for you. Gonna get rid of that membrane in the back. But a beautiful smoke ring and an absolutely beautiful bark. And look at how juicy that is. You see how the fat rendered out from in between the fibers? Alright, now let's give it a try, see if it tastes as good as it looks. Wow. I'm even thinking of making the project go a little longer and doing like a low and slow rotisserie thing, where we go as low as 120 degrees Celsius, smoking it. But now I'm just nitpicking, because rotisserie beef ribs are definitely a good thing. If you don't have rotisserie beef ribs in your life, you really need to start thinking about it. See you in the next video. Until then, it's Mark. Keep them grilled.